Hey peeps, it's the Names and Coffee podcast, and I'm Alex, the name mentor, and today I am super lucky to have the super TikTok famous baby namer, Taylor from What's in a Baby Name. I am stoked for today's episode. Thanks for being on my podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, and I am literally dying inside that you called me TikTok famous. I don't even know how to handle that. I think it just feels so silly to me. I haven't really come to terms with that.
Yeah, well, it's awesome. It's so good for the name community, because when I started out, it was so super fringe and everybody was so scared to tell their family that they were into baby names. It was a super closeted hobby, to now you're on TikTok, your videos are getting a lot of views and you have a lot of followers, and it's shouting from the rooftops, we're not as weird as you think we are.
Exactly. We used to have to be closeted weirdos, and now we just get to let our freak flags fly and
opening up the curtains.
We are
letting our sunshine out.
Totally. It's really funny because I spent my whole life trying very hard to be cool. I would identify other people and be like, well, that person's cool. So if I just had maybe more of those interests and hobbies, maybe I could be cool by association. And it really wasn't until I was like, you know what? I gotta just accept that I am a little bit of a fringe weirdo. And I really just poured my heart into my little Instagram page. And I just started to realize well, this might not be cool, but it is really interesting. Yeah. And I feel like as I've become more comfortable in my own skin and I've gotten more confident sharing this kind of what started off as a weird hobby of mine, with more people, the more, acceptance I feel that I've gotten. And so that really just kind of, flipped a switch for me, kind of psychologically. I didn't realize that I could actually be accepted just for who I am and for the weirdness that I am bringing into the world.
Well, it's funny. If you are interested in names and you stick your toe in the water thinking, am I the only one? It's like that scene in Ratatouille where that lady sees the one rat, but there are all those rats in the ceiling that end up falling through.
Yes.
There are so many of us, and
there are so many, and so much. I just think that I think of us as a community, and I really always have. The support that I have gotten throughout the last 6 years since I've been on Instagram has been immense from other baby namers. It's incredible how many wonderful people are putting out such juicy, rich, interesting, intellectually stimulating content that on a subject that nobody talks about, but it's so bizarre that we don't talk about this more often.
Know.
Every single person has a name. I've never met a guy without a name.
I know. It's crazy to think about. The Instagram name community is so incredibly kind. There's other social media platforms, but nothing beats Instagram. I don't know who remembers Formspring. It used to be this website where you could have a little profile and answer questions. Right. So that was the fringe of where all the namers would gather and talk and do baby name games. Anastasia Ruby had created a website for a little while, and we all flocked to that.
Right.
But we were all still in the blogosphere. There were the solid baby name sites, but there was no place to get together. Right. And so I started a blog, and it was really great. I made a lot of great connections, but there was nobody on Instagram. Instagram was this new thing. And my sister-in-law was you really need to get on Instagram. And I looked around and there were no name accounts, zero. It was a ghost land. And I said, well, I'm just going to put myself out there.
Right.
And at the time, I was going by a pen name because I was embarrassed to use my real name. I even had an avatar. I didn't even use my face. And I just started putting out content. And the first time I got like 5 likes. And I was like, well, that's cool. And then I got 30 likes. And then it grew. And then I remember getting 100 followers and going, this is crazy. Like, this could be something.
Right.
And now, this spring, I was on there for 8 years. And there's just no other community like the Instagram community. I've seen a lot of name accounts come and go, but the people that just are in it because they genuinely love it are still around. And like, it's hard to imagine Instagram before you. Like, I'm so glad
Well, the thing is,
that you're here.
Thank you so much. That is so sweet of you to say. And what's so interesting is, like, I don't have a baby naming Instagram experience without you in it. You have been there from the very beginning.
My condolences.
No, it's truly, like, I remember when we first kind of connected and realized that we were both living in the Catskills and we were going to get together and meet. And I remember telling my ex-boyfriend, who I was with at the time, like, you don't understand. This is like meeting my celebrity crush or something. Like, I've been following this girl for so long, and I was just fangirling hard when I met you. Because I mean, I know that you did the rebrand from Names Daily to the name Mentor, and I think that's such a perfect name for you. Because, I mean, obviously you are a namer, so you obviously would have chosen one for yourself. But it speaks to my heart because I really think of you as my mentor. And
gosh, thank you so much.
There were periods of time in the last, kind of 6.5 years that I've been doing this, 6 years, that, I was really sick and I didn't have the motivation to post. But of course, I was going on my profile every day and scrolling through, and I would see your posts every single day. And there was just a warmth that always emanated from you and your account. And so, I mean, you are an emblem of this really incredibly kind, empathetic community. And I feel like you've really helped build that, and you've created a sense of space for people to come in and share their love. And I think that's so wonderful. So
thank you. I worked really hard to guard it. Something that, like, one of my core beliefs is that to keep the peace, you have to be willing to wield a sword from time to time. Like, keeping the peace isn't not saying something, it's actually protecting something.
Right.
And I've worked really hard to protect my Instagram space of, I'm fine having a discussion, but I'm talking about names and people have these names. And so it's just not okay for me for you to come and just spill your garbage all over my comments.
Totally.
So I janitor my own comments. I mean, obviously I leave the discussions, but if it's just nastiness.
There's no place for that.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. I'm talking about names. DM me if you want to talk about it, but I'm not going to have somebody with that name read your horrible comment.
Right. That was something that I grappled with a little bit. I mean, maybe about 3 years ago, because I decided it would be fun to start making memes. And I don't think I made too much fun of, like, really specific names, but I would exaggerate names, like the misspelling, the alternative spelling names. I really was on a tangent about don't give your kid an alternatively spelled name for a while. And so I made a couple of memes about it, and it was weird, but there was just something inside, like, because that felt like the right advice to parents for me at that time. But every time I would post a meme that I had made kind of like that, I would have that kind of cringy feeling. Yeah. And I didn't know why. And I didn't know where it was coming from. But I think this segues really well into kind of what we want to talk about today, which is like this imposter syndrome and the spectrum of the imposter to the authoritative expert.
Yeah.
And I've really struggled with both. And I think the best thing I can say is, detach from that entire spectrum. Get off of that spectrum. If you're ping-ponging between the two, you're on the wrong hamster wheel. Because in either case, like, you're just centering yourself and you're centering your opinions, but you're not actually providing practical insight or advice. And practical insight and advice requires you to have empathy and understanding for the person that you are working for and with.
Well, and I think it's human nature that whatever interest group you have, when you're passionate about it, you dive in and you want to learn all that you know, and then you become like an encyclopedia of all these things, which ends up meaning you're just parroting the common theme, where no matter where you're getting your information from. And I think it was a couple of years ago now, I had actually posted a video that said I used to know everything. Of all the horrible things that I used to believe and say, that I'm like, actually, they're so unkind, and it's just an opinion. It's not actually helping anything.
Right.
But what I had wanted to say was, I don't know if this makes me a terrible person or not, but when you've been in a space and you're like the one forging the path in something, everybody wants to come and get a shout out. And literally, Taylor, hundreds of baby name accounts have come and gone. Literally, I've counted them.
Yeah.
And a lot of them come and wanted a shout out. And I would say, I don't do shout outs. I am happy to share your content, but I don't know you.
Right.
And I've worked really, really hard to guard my space. So if I'm shouting you out, I'm like saying, this is a person that, like, I'm sharing your advice and your perspective. Like, I really honor that, and I take it seriously for my followers.
Yes.
And so I saw, your little profile picture show up and what's in a baby name. And I just keep an eye on how long accounts are around and what their content they're producing.
Right.
And I don't remember how long ago this was, but you had posted in your stories about some of the health issues that you were going through. And you just happened to use the term obstetric violence.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm listening. And it was that day that I shifted in how I saw you, of you weren't just like a hobby girl namer. You were like a real person who had stepped into their calling. And you bless my socks off. I'm always so glad when you share into these deep things, because I think that's another one of our similarities is women's healthcare, not just about our thing with naming, but the whole woman's experience. Right. Naming your baby is a small piece of that pie of the whole experience.
Right. So hearing you say that, I mean, I don't know if you can tell, but I literally I'm literally tearing up here, and I just start crying. But that's me. That's part of the authentic experience that you're getting if you're following me, or we are real women, and we're sharing real life experiences. And yes, we love baby names, but it's so much more than that. And so for those listening who don't know, I'm a trained childbirth doula. Yes. And that kind of came about in a very bizarre way. I actually I became interested in studying to be a doula, a childbirth doula specifically, because I had taken on a similar role at the end of my grandmother's life. And, my mom was there to handle logistics for her mother, and, all of the doctors and nurses and caregivers, that was her care team. So they were taking care of all of her medical needs. But in the kind of chaos of the
Mhm.
end of life, um, no one was talking to her like a human. No one was talking to her like, or attending to her emotional needs. And I really felt like I just kind of naturally fit into that role. And I was there for, I moved home. I was living in New York, but my family is in California. So I came back to California and I spent the last 2.5 years of my grandma's life. And I was, going to all of her doctor's
Mhm.
appointments and I was spending time with her. And then I was there with her when she passed. And that was a real moment of awakening for me.
Yeah.
And for anyone who has ever witnessed death, um, if as long as it's not a traumatic death, because I understand that would be a very different experience. But for me, I was at her bedside, I was rubbing her head, I was, saying like, I love you so much. And I watched her take her last breath. And it was really interesting because she we you could tell by the way she looked that that was going to be her time. Her skin
Mhm.
was really tight and kind of gray, and you could see the veins. And it was a little bit startling when we came in and she had that labored breathing.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, she took this last gasp, and you could see the surrender. You could feel the energy, and it's just hard to explain, but
Yeah.
like
It
her
marks you. You can't unsee.
you
It
can't
changes everything about you. You can't unsee.
exactly. Her skin somehow like turned, like it was luminous, and the color came back to her skin as she died because she took this big breath. And I can't describe it any better than to say, like, I was
Mhm.
looking at an angel. Like you could just feel
Yeah.
this surrender and this angelic feeling. And I just knew, like, oh my God, there's something here. Like, I have to help women through their big life transitions. And I, having seen death, which was really beautiful, I was like, I think it might be more
Yeah.
fun to like
Yeah.
choose life. Like maybe I should bring life into
Yeah.
the world, or help. I would
Death
love
is a
to bring
lot.
life into the world, but on my own. But helping women and supporting women through that transition. And so that's kind of, the inspiration of like why I went into doula work. But this happened to coincide with this 5-year undiagnosed, debilitating chronic illness, which ultimately was diagnosed as an autoimmune disorder. Um, but this is bringing us really back to this point about imposter syndrome and the expert, right? In
Yeah.
my health journey, I went to so many different doctors and nurse practitioners, and
Mhm.
I got no help. And I experienced intense infantilization, right? Like, oh honey, it's probably just that time of the month, or like
Yes.
this real, like, we know better than you do, like. And
Mhm.
so early on, this is actually really crazy. I had been doing all the research online about my unique, set of symptoms, and it seemed like I might have this one autoimmune disorder. It's called lichen sclerosis. And when I presented to my doctor at the time, I still have the note, like, with the date that I wrote this note on my notes app on my phone. It's so crazy to see this. Um, he said, my gynecologist, it absolutely couldn't be that because you're too young to have that. That's something that only affects women who are going through menopause. So that happened, I believe, in like 2018, and I wasn't diagnosed for another 2 years.
Oh my
And
gosh, Taylor.
yeah. And it had already been going on for 3 years at that point.
Shoo.
And so basically, I was dealing with a lot of things, which, I don't want to go into here, but the general overview was that I was almost completely incapacitated. I couldn't work because I was in so much physical pain every single day. I was experiencing horrendous depression because I couldn't, I was not functioning sexually, and I couldn't have sex. And, I'm a young lady. I wanted to be having sex. That was a big thing for me. But, that aside, it was just chronic, horrific shooting pain every single day. And, I never had a doctor in that process. It was like a 5-year process where all of the doctors just kept saying, we know best. It couldn't be this. We can try this whole list of things, but no, it couldn't possibly be a dietary problem. No, it couldn't possibly be this. And so there was just so much gaslighting. And I think this is a really, really big issue in medicine. And so I started doing polls in my stories and asking women, have you ever experienced some form of obstetric violence, or have you experienced birth trauma? Because that it comes out a lot during the birthing process. And I don't remember the exact number, but it was like, I don't know, like, I'm just going to toss a number out there. I think it was between 65 and 80% of my followers at the time saying we experienced this kind of medical abuse.
But the crazy thing, Taylor, I think, is they just say, I think a lot of women just assume that that's a normal, that that's a part of the process. Like, oh, well, the baby was safe, or at least we got our answer, but that doesn't justify what happened. But we just have accepted that that's the process because that's all we've ever known and that's all we've ever heard about.
Well, it's because we've been trained as women to be polite and to respect authority. And the problem is that if the authority that you are putting all of your faith and trust in is ping-ponging on the spectrum of imposter syndrome and, kind of like expert arrogance, you are putting your physical well-being and your mental well-being in the wrong hands.
Yeah. I mean, I had 2 home births, and just to do home births 9 years ago was not a fun conversation to have with people. And so what Joe and I, the response we started giving people is we didn't say, oh, but it's my choice or it's fine. Right. We just started saying, well, we wanted to choose the most statistically safe birth plan. And that jars people. They don't realize that the United States in the developed countries is the worst for maternal and fetal mortality rate.
Yeah, it's shocking to people.
And the number is going up.
Yeah, it's getting worse. It is getting worse for women who birth in hospitals. There's a brand new study just published out of Canada. I believe it's Jansen et al. That just came out proving that birth outcomes in terms of maternal and fetal mortality rates are the same between hospital and home birth. But home birth has all of the added benefits of no excess medical interventions. So basically, women feel more confident. They feel more content having had the birth that they wanted to have. There are a number of different, factors
and I'm sure you know this too. I don't know how
recovery time is also much quicker and easier. Lower rates of postpartum depression. It's like all of these added benefits from just not having this laundry list of excessive and often unnecessary medical interventions.
Well, but even those statistics are sketchy because I don't know what they do in Canada, but in the US, if you have like failed abortions or miscarriages, that gets documented as a home birth. Wow. That's not a home birth. If it's been a birth outside of a hospital and a birthing event outside of a hospital that gets labeled as home birth.
I never knew that.
So like if you look at Ina May Gaskin,
right.
I
Ina
think
May Gaskin, by the way, for people who don't know, is kind of like she was this amazing, I believe she's still alive.
Yes,
But she really pioneered kind of modern midwifery. She lived and worked on a commune, and she became the midwife for this commune back in the 60s, I believe.
Yeah, it's still there. Like Brad Paisley's wife went to her farm. So she calls it a farm, but it's basically just a place where women can come and get care. And I believe her C-section rate or transfer rate is 3%.
Oh my God.
Now, the hospital.
Compare that to a hospital rate, which go ahead.
My hospital, now not all hospitals are this horrendous, but at the time when I was giving birth, my local hospital had a 53% cesarean rate.
That I can't even.
And I said, and for that reason, I'm out.
Yeah, right. That's be a no for me, dog. Yeah, that's actually a lot higher than the national rate, but the national rate is not much better. It's about 33%, maybe a little bit higher.
That's still astronomical.
That's 1 in 3 women are going to give birth by C-section. Now, for anyone who's listening and wondering, why is that a problem? It's not. If you end up with a healthy baby, you're probably pretty happy. But if you went into your birth experience, you're laboring, and you're looking forward to giving birth vaginally, and then you ultimately have to succumb to a C-section, that can really mess you up physiologically. Emotionally, you can feel any number of kind of emotions surrounding that, right? Like you feel that, I don't know. I don't want to get so into this.
Well, I think it ends up getting put on, like when we have these debates of natural or not natural or hospital birth or home birth, for some reason, all these women just get so hurt feeling like they had failed, when really it's the system umbrellaed over top of everyone. So if you had a C-section, everything was great, that's amazing. But there are other women that wasn't great for.
Right.
And comes back to this whole idea of being out of control. Like Brene Brown talks about the roots of shame is feeling out of control. And so then you have this process that really should have been protected and nurtured for you that has been robbed from you. Mm-hmm. And then we try to justify it and say, well, at least the baby was healthy. Yes, but you aren't okay. And it's okay to say you're not okay. And it takes women talking that's going to bring change and say, hey, I'm not okay giving birth in a country that has the worst maternal and fetal mortality rate. So it's such a tricky conversation to have. Like my family is a medical family. My brother is a doctor. So I see the people with really great hearts who show up.
Yeah.
I've been through medical trauma. And so I've seen the authoritarian, I know better than you, who have zero emotional intelligence, hurt me.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, there's gotta be discussion about it, because I had a real experience.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, is women being robbed of their dignity.
Yes. And for me in the baby naming world, I think that's where I've circled back around is, yes, I love talking about names, but I've had 2 children. And when you are pregnant and when you're delivering and when you're postpartum, there's 1,000 different ways that your power gets taken from you. And you just feel so gross. And it's
like it's a molestation, right?
Yes, it is.
Taking away from you
in every emotions and mental and physical and everything.
And spiritual. So there's a spiritual sacred component, especially in birth, right? You are a portal that is opening and birthing new life onto the planet.
Yeah.
So you are a portal that is expanding and opening, and you are as open as you are ever going to be in that moment. So
Yes.
anything that is misaligned with just the highest possible vibe for you,
yes.
it is a molestation of your sacred space.
Yes. Yes.
That
And
is just,
so I look at my little corner of the name world it could seem insignificant in the grander spectrum, but I just want to be the person I needed. I want to be the person that gives them back their power in this decision, because if I can empower them in this decision, it can help you feel empowered for all of the other ones. When the experts are telling you no, you can say yes, but I hear you, but you need to hear me as well.
exactly. Or just, I mean, yeah, oh my gosh, I have so much to say about this. And it's like the words aren't quite coming together for me because I'm so excited. I'm like, yes, yes to that, yes to that. But yeah, I mean, it's also remembering that no is a full sentence. So anything that's ever recommended to you, you can just say no.
Yeah.
No, I don't want that. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Thank you. No, I won't be choosing that option at this time. If I change my mind, I'll let you know. Oh my gosh, there's so much that you said that I want to speak about. And I'm just finding it difficult to even pick on one thing that you said, because everything that you've said is just so brilliant. But you know, I think for me, on the baby naming side, there's been just such an evolution, but I want to say a maturation, because it's becoming more mature and recognizing that you are not the focal point in somebody else's journey.
Yes.
And that's really where I've gotten hung up in the past. And in the moments where I felt in some way that I had failed a client, it was because I was centering myself, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's because I thought, I have to show up. I have to be the expert. I have to have all the answers. Yes. I have to make this decision for them. I'm a baby namer, so I have to choose the name. I have to either predict the right name or give them such a good suggestion that it just blows their, their mind. And so they choose that, and then that's going to validate me. And it was just me. It was me.
Yeah.
And man, oh man, is that just the worst possible approach? That is just, I mean, it's from everything I've experienced
impossible.
And everything I learned through my doula studies, it all fits together. Mm-hmm. This is just like, you come to my page now and it's like sometimes I wonder if, especially, new followers come and they're like, this is a little chaotic. Like they come and they see that, like, yeah, she wrote, there's some baby names, but now, I'm like, in my stories, it's just anything I see that I resonate with, you're getting that, and you go through my highlights. It's like 1 minute we're talking about God and the next minute we're talking about lipstick. Like, where is the common thread? And I just think, people are multifaceted. And
it's so authenticity.
So you got to just be authentic. And, if you're coming here, you're getting the full package now. And I'm hoping that in all of the ways that I've stretched myself and learned and tried to mature, it's not so much about me anymore. It's more about the process and me. Yeah. I'm trying to find the right word here because I'm struggling with this idea of being a guide. And the reason why it's the closest word to what I want to say, mm-hmm. but it's flawed in the respect that it implies that there's a roadmap.
Yeah, it implies that the person doesn't know what they're doing and
it implies that the person doesn't know what they're doing. They need to be guided. There is a roadmap, ridiculous. And there is a destination.
Yeah.
Insanity. Okay, ridiculous. So it's none of that. What it is it's serving. It's being a servant. It's walking beside. It's companionship.
Yeah.
It's empathy. It's saying, hey, this is a
Yeah.
sacred process. Some people give it absolutely no thought, and they just hear a name they like and they're like, we'll choose
Yeah.
that. And that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
great. For some people, it's really easy. For some people, it's not. And for
Yeah.
those people, they deserve compassion, empathy, and to be served as the multidimensional people that they are.
Yeah.
And they deserve to be seen in every aspect of their life. And they don't need to be guided. They don't need to be guided or given the right name.
Yes. Yeah.
They just need to be
Reminded
minded. They need
and
to
empowered.
yes,
Yeah.
empowered. I mean, what I say in a lot of my emails is like, this is a process of discovery, and we're going to help you discover your baby's name.
Yes. That's just, I mean, I love your varied stories because you just have all these different thoughts that I think about. But what spurred this podcast was literally something that you had shared yesterday. And I literally wrote it down because I wanted to quote it on here. So you were in your stories touching on imposter syndrome, but you said, if you want to support people, if you want to help people along their journey, you have to stop engaging with this very egotistical mindset. And that got us both talking of if you look at like a yin and yang, one side is this imposter syndrome and the other side is this authoritarian, like, I know better than you. You're so dumb,
right?
To even think about that.
Right.
And then there's the authentic middle. And that's where I want to be. I want to be in the messy middle of helping people figure it out, because nothing is black and white. Everything feels so complicated because humans are complicated. It's not as straightforward. And you find these women who just have let themselves be devalued so much that they no longer believe in their instincts and in their heart. And we have this incredible opportunity to come up to them and say, girl, you've got this. You're right on the money.
Right.
I joke because I've done name mentorships as well. And 99.999% of the time, I know that woman, that couple are going to choose the very first name that came to me with.
Right.
I'm just convincing them of it.
Every single time.
Yeah.
It's so funny that you said that, because that has been my experience as well. And I remember that being there were a couple of pivotal moments in this kind of journey of maturation in the service that I'm now providing, and how different it is from what I was providing 3 years ago when I started taking clients. But certainly it was recognizing it's always the name they come to you with. It's always going to be that name. Doesn't matter if I suggest 100 names that are, basically synonymous with that one name that they really like.
Yeah.
You're choosing the one they like. You can't at a certain point you have to realize you are not an algorithm.
Yes.
You are not an encyclopedia. You are just not going to know every single name that could possibly appeal to any given couple. I think it's really helpful for them to see the name that they have chosen on a list of other really good suggestions, because you know what it does? It reminds them. It reminds them of who they are and what they want every single time. And
then mission accomplished. But yet I used to find myself being like, did I not do a good enough job? Like, they just chose the name they loved. Did I do something? But I remember the first time I got on a video call with somebody who needed help, I was like super concerned that I wouldn't be able to show up. Like, I'm supposed to be this genie that comes out and magically solves their problem.
Of course.
But really, it's just, they just need somebody to talk to about it, who has enough info in this area that they can trust, that they know what they're talking about, who's not related to them, who's not friends or family, who's totally third party in the field that they need help with. to just talk it out. Am I crazy?
Right.
Most of the time, the answer is no.
Most of the time. Most of the time. Yeah, totally. 100%. Women have been so undermined.
Yes.
We don't even remember what it's like to be ourselves. We don't even know what it is to be in touch with ourselves, in touch with our emotions, in touch with our desires.
Yeah.
And I think it's our job to remind women, you gotta step back into that. And not you've got to step back into that, but you can.
Yes.
It's an option and it's possible for you. And I'm here to stand beside you if you choose to do that. And I'm here to stand beside you if you choose not to.
Yeah.
Because I'm just going to be here. I'm just here for you now.
Yeah. And what a gift. What a privilege to be able to do that. Just to be with them in that moment. I mean, like you watching your grandma pass. I've had a lot of death experiences in my life as well, but it marks you standing with women silently in the corner of your DMs who have just had loss.
Oh my God. Yes.
It marks you. Yeah. And you go, I'm not here for the name. No. I'm here sitting with you. Right. Like, I've been around long enough that I've seen women go through these things, and I know sometimes what they've named their baby. And so if I see them doing something subtle, like nobody else knows this except me, I reach out to them and say, oh, I'm thinking of you. And they're always so blown away and blessed that I remembered. But like,
how could you ever forget?
How I can't forget. It marked me. Right. It marked me. I remember all of their names.
Of course.
And
that's the power. Yeah. I really feel like that's the power of the divine feminine flowing through. Like this thoughtfulness and this nurturing and this wanting to be together. This desire to build community with women. And what's amazing about Instagram is like, this is all virtual now. Like I don't need to be in the small village in Germany to work with you.
Does this not blow your mind though?
Yeah.
It blows my mind.
It does. Yeah. No, it blows my mind. It blows my mind.
This is such a gift. There's a dark side to social media, but there's also a lot of good.
There's so much good. I think that a lot of the problems that we're facing right now, just with skyrocketing cases of mental illness, right? Like just people feeling so depressed and disenfranchised and searching for meaning and not finding it.
Yeah.
There's such a disconnect in this kind of technocratic world, and it's so fast paced and our values are all kind of off. And I just feel like, man, all of these problems stem from a lack of community, and how beautiful it is that there are women who are finding ways to create this community now.
Yeah, I feel like women, like seeing women showing up for other women feels so tribal. Like there's nothing that I wouldn't do. And it just makes you feel so taken care of, because we're in this really weird place. I don't know if this has ever happened before, but like so many women of our generation feel incredibly alone in our physical immediate communities. Yeah. And so when you feel alone and alienated, we now have this portal to all of these other women.
Right.
And that's been a gift for me. That's been like a gift for me.
Me too.
It's just so humbling, and I'm so grateful, because without it, I would have kept all my traumas quiet and just kept them hidden in the dark and never talked about them. but it just takes women starting to talk about stuff that makes you feel so gosh darn seen. Like, I'm not crazy.
Right. Right.
I'm not crazy.
I'm not crazy, and I'm not alone.
Yeah.
And there are people out there who can help me, and I can help them, right? Because I would be lying if I didn't say, like, my clients have as big an effect on me as I probably have on them. You know, it's a mutual thing. And that's why there's no guidance. I'm not guiding you. You know, I'm being guided by you as well. We're walking together. This is mutual discovery. You know, I happen to have expertise in this very niche area, and I'm glad that I can offer that as help to people who need it. But we're walking together.
I'm like, I don't know if you can tell, my face is so flushed. I like am so hot because this is such heavy, good stuff to talk about.
No.
It's just so important. It's so important. And it brings up all the things in me too. Like, I'm just sitting here talking to you about it, helping women, but like, I've had that in reverse, and it just feels so good to like have somebody to share that space with you. It helps break out. It gets shame out in the open and away.
Yeah.
And what a time we're in. What a time.
But when you say what an interesting time to be alive, there's just this sense of like, yeah, but we chose it. We came here for this. All of the gaslighting, the undermining, the horrific programming, the slut shaming, all of the centuries and centuries and centuries of nonsense that somehow were piled onto us. And I don't know why. I don't know why I see us doing that. It seems to coincide with like this interest in ancestral healing that I see. Like, so I feel that I'm on kind of a journey of ancestral healing. I feel that I'm healing.
I see that ground swelling. I'm really seeing a lot of women talking about this. Like, you talking about being a doula, and a lot of these things that we've been talking about 5-10 years ago, people would have gone, huh? But it takes people talking about it that like we all kind of know what a doula is now, and ancestral trauma, and just all these things, which is awesome.
It is. It's amazing. It's amazing, and it's awesome, and it's also a little weird. But it's in the same way that we were talking about baby names 6 and 8 years ago, like, and suddenly everyone's kind of catching up, right? And it's like suddenly it's piquing people's interests. I think it's the same with ancestral healing, more holistic healthcare, functional medicine. Like, I think what I see is, this is going to sound really ironic because I understand that we're in the middle of a global pandemic. However, I do feel that we are healing. I feel a sense of healing. I've felt it myself. I have healed from this illness, or I've at least gotten the symptoms into remission. So luckily, I'm not living in agony every single day, and I can
that's so great.
Contribute. Thank you. I know, it's amazing.
I'm like cheering, but I don't want to interrupt you.
Like health, man. Like, it's really not overrated. And I see that the healing journey that I've been on, I see that reflected in the world around me. And I see people becoming really interested in spirituality, but not in the like, I should go follow this guru, but in this like, spirituality is recognizing the spirit that's housed within this body, and the ways that, these two things kind of dance together, right? The physical
Yes.
and the ethereal. And I love that there's just this this seeking of knowledge and wisdom, this connection with wisdom.
Yeah, it's exciting. You talking about being spiritual reminds me of our conversations that we've had in the past about well, I can't figure out what else to call it, but the modern Puritan names. I've racked my brain. I don't know what else to call it. So
I don't know either. I think we got to go with the modern Puritan names. I think it describes it well.
Like, just
they're descriptive. Yes. They're very literal, very tangible.
Yeah. Birthed from this deep connection and conviction of wanting to speak over your child this thing,
this blessing.
Right? Yeah. And we've talked about, one of the things that gets parroted in the name community is children need their own identity. You can't saddle them with something they'll never live up to. Well, if you're going to name your child Prosper, like, obviously as a parent, you need to equip them to know how to succeed in life, even if you were to name them Brunhilde. It doesn't matter what you're naming your children. Like, you've got to rise up as a parent for your child to succeed. It doesn't begin and end with names, but there is this desire to speak life and to speak meaning over your children, especially in this time when everything went to poop in a handbasket. Just this like global uncertainty. And I really think one of the next major trends that I'm seeing is this next modern Puritan name trend which is going to include a lot of bird names. So I've heard.
Thank God. Because if anyone has been following me, they know I have been shouting from the rooftops bird names. I think it's such an untapped resource of like amazing names that nobody is using, and they're so good. They're so good. It's funny because I think this is like right in the center of the Venn diagram of the names we're talking about, like the modern Puritan names, but also bird names. You came up with this name Hawkeye. I can't let it go. It's like Furley Bell, which if you followed me last year, my big thing was I found, where was that? It was on a blog about Gothic Victorian names, I believe, or unusual Victorian names.
Your future hit screenplay is going to have a Furley Bell in it.
Thumbelina 2.
Yeah.
Birth of Furley Bell. So anyway, I found this name and I just loved it. And, I couldn't let it go. And I was talking about it in all of my Instagram stories. I just couldn't stop talking about this name. I just thought it was like, it's a fairy name. It's princess name. It's weird. It's quirky.
You're with Furley Bell like I am with Winslet. Every opportunity I go, hey, have you heard of the name Winslet? I don't think I've talked about it in 5 minutes.
It's beautiful. I love Winslet. It's so good. And I think that now that I've seen Hawkeye, that's my new one. Hawkeye is just amazing. I mean, it's just like music to my ears.
Well, and all these youngins that are like, oh, like Hawkeye from Marvel. I'm like, hold on just a second.
I don't even know
about Hawkeye Pierce from MASH, peeps. Who was named after Last of the Mohicans, but MASH is one of my favorite shows. I love MASH.
I don't watch Marvel. I've never seen MASH. Like, I never saw Last of the Mohicans, which I actually would really like to see. I know a girl who named her daughter Cora, who I believe was a character from Last of the Mohicans. Is that right?
I've never read Last of the Mohicans.
Oh, okay.
I just know this fact from the 30 million times I've watched MASH.
Okay.
And I fact checked. He was true.
Amazing. I just love that name. I just love it. I just love it. And it's I always say that names are so aspirational. And it's like they don't have to be descriptive like Hawkeye to be aspirational. I think you choose a name like Theodore, that to me sounds
Yeah.
aspirational. Another big one that's
Yeah.
coming up is August or Augustus.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, like our a Roman emperor, how much more
Yeah.
aspirational could we be?
Yes, exactly.
It's like it's I think that baby naming is like I don't know. I mean it's just such a reflection of who who you believe yourself to be as a parent and then who you imagine, your progeny will
Yeah.
ultimately be.
It just,
And
I see so many people being so much more like, I don't want to say intentional because I think that seems horribly disrespectful to the generations past, but like being super deliberate
yeah,
in this deep, um, because even for the people that say, oh, it's not spiritual for me, you're lying to yourself. You're wanting this deep connection of conviction. Like if you are birthing something from inside of you to
it's
put
coming
on
through
your
your
kid, it's
portal.
spiritual.
It's coming through your
Yeah.
portal.
Yeah.
That is
Have your baby and then get back to me that it's not a spiritual experience.
right. Right. I mean, I think that people get so distracted with the material world that we just
Yes.
lose sight of, any aspect of, what's beyond the five senses. And so it's easy I mean, again, in this life that we're all kind of living, so much technology, fast
Mm-hmm.
paced,
Yeah.
every, Zoom meetings, just everything is just like, it's such a disconnect from our natural state of being. It's such a disconnect from, the tribes that we were living in thousands of years ago, communally.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just, it makes sense why, um, well, a few things. It makes sense why people aren't as in tune with the sacred process of
Yeah.
everything. Um, and also, I think makes sense why there are such high rates of obstetric violence because women don't necessarily remember what it's
Yeah.
like to live, you know, in a natural way or state. Um, and they were never taught about physiological birth. This is so embarrassing, but and I don't know if this is because I went to Catholic school and the shame around bodily functions and sex education was just like so limiting that it took me until I was 30 years old studying to become a doula to learn about physiological birth. I mean,
Yeah.
that's crazy. I didn't understand the hormonal cocktail that makes that
Yes.
happen, and like birth is magical,
It
magical.
is.
Your body is totally like this is
Yeah.
just. I mean, it's so crazy because
Yeah.
it is both so sacred and so mundane.
Well, I feel like a part of the reason that America has such a horrible um, death rate is the fact that women just aren't being told these things
We're never
to
educated.
equip them. Like I grew up on a farm. I was a horse midwife.
Yeah.
I'd always wanted to be a mom.
Right.
I thought I was pretty well equipped. And I had entered the process. So I had known I'd always wanted to do a home birth. But my first experience was a great lady, but I, she didn't know how to read somebody who'd been through trauma. So like I don't fault her. I was totally incapable of really communicating. And so there was just this shutdown between us. And so during this process, I was just told that I wasn't strong enough and I would end up having to be transferred. So it's like I'm getting it from my family. I'm now getting it from my midwife. And at the last minute, Joe and I went and booked a birth class with this woman named Fanny. And I get so choked up to this day thinking about her because she showed up as full woman, and she empowered me and reminded me of my strength. Yeah. Now, if I had gone through that whole process and still had a C-section, I still would have been showing up in my best capabilities and full strength. I just would have known about it. I think that's the thing that we're talking about, is the doctor saying, oh, we need to have a C-section, but do you feel empowered in it? Like, that's what we're really touching on. And I clung to her words while I was in labor. I didn't know any of these things before she told me, like all the things, like women in comas have natural births. So your whole thing is to get out of your body's way. You don't need to tense up. You don't need to grr. You need to be so as relaxed as you can to let your body do its thing. Do you know how freeing that was for me? Because I thought I had to show up and be the superhuman. And it just took one woman showing up in her kindness to me. And I've carried that with me. I'm so incredibly thankful. And that's how I want to be in the name community. I want to be another version of Fanny. I don't want to be somebody that tells you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
You know?
They do know what they're doing.
Yes.
They have to be reminded. They have to be educated, and they have to be reminded of it. But the thing is that, cave women didn't have education, right? So it's like, the whole educated, you have to be awakened to the possibility of what birth can look like naturally outside of the modern system.
Right. And I think that
you don't have to become a doula. You don't have to, read a million books, but you need to at least understand that this option exists, and it's actually more beneficial to your baby and to you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, it's your physiological process. It's your body. Your body is just going to take over. And, one of the really incredible things you mentioned, like women in comas have natural births. This is actually because you don't ever have to push your baby. You never have to push.
Your body literally has the reflex. I was very surprised. First time.
Women don't know this.
Yeah.
So it's called the fetal ejection reflex. You literally don't have to do anything, and your baby's going to come out on its own. You don't have to push. You don't have to.
But this is exactly what I'm talking about, Taylor. Who is talking about this? Because Hollywood isn't.
Hollywood is absolutely not.
Not once did I go.
Doctors aren't talking about it. Hospitals, childbirth education through the hospital, certainly not talking about it. So that obviously is weird. That's weird. Why isn't this discussed? It's like, that makes it easier for everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone benefits if you just allow your body to naturally go through its process.
Well, I think you just said something that made me go like, ha, 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 in my own mind of, I think we're all trying to go back to our womanly roots. Like, if you look, I grew up here in America. So 200 years or whatever in America has been a certain culture where women people didn't talk about anything. Family secrets, forget it. They go to the grave. It just was too impolite. You didn't talk about mental health or miscarriage or abuse or anything.
Right.
And so in this arc, you believe that that's normal because that's all you've ever known. Right. But if you look back at other cultures a couple hundred years ago, it was women rallying together, reading the book, The Red Tent. I was like, I want a red tent.
Red tent? Is this like a birthing thing?
No, so it was a book based on the biblical story of Dinah with Jacob and his brothers, and Dinah was the sister, and it's an author's interpretation. But what I love about it is that she delves into the culture of, it's like when you're reading the Bible, for example, it would talk about how the woman is unclean and she needs to go separate herself for 7 days.
Right.
You go, that's horrible.
Yeah.
But when you read this book, you go, I want to be unclean for 7 days. They all go to this tent because when women are living together, they end up getting on the same cycles.
Yeah.
So all of them went there and just took care of each other, and they just rested, and they fed themselves figs, and like it was women coming together.
Yeah.
And that's what we crave. And I think one of the major birthing moments in society happening right now is that we have this primal desire for maternal connection. And so many of us have fractured relationships. So there's no going to mom and hearing about how I was born. Like, we're all starting from scratch.
Right.
And so it just takes women who you're not immediately connected to to talk to you, to bring us all back to that tribe of just communicating information that's never been communicated to you.
Yeah, we're talking about ancestral healing, and it's almost like we're also doing descendant healing as well. And like you just said, we're starting from zero, we're starting from scratch because we have fractured relationships, or our parents or grandparents didn't talk to us about this stuff. Like, we're going to talk to our daughters about this, and we're going to just create an entirely new culture around being open and honest and authentic, and sharing the truth of what it is to be a woman, the sacred journey of womanhood. And like, one thing I would love to see is to stop emphasizing menstruation and start emphasizing ovulation.
Yes.
Menstruation just is the end of the cycle. The cycle is ovulation. Yes. How amazing. Like, why we should be calling it the ovulation cycle. Like, we are just producing eggs once a month.
It's so crazy to think about our bodies just doing this.
It's just crazy and beautiful. And like, I mean, come on. That is magic. That is magical. Magical. I just love that. And I mean, we should be focusing on the parts of us that are magical. But instead, we've been focusing on the parts of us that are about death. And I don't think that that's a bad thing, right? There's room for all of this. Like, we inhabit all of these different things. But focusing so much on the death, like, let's start focusing on the life that we have the capacity to have inside of us. I mean, how empowering is that?
Yeah.
How incredible is that?
It makes me want to like pick up some sword and shield and just like hoorah, because it's so amazing. I mean, when I watched Captain Marvel and Wonder Woman, I literally cried. Like, I was in the theater with Wonder Woman weeping. Yeah. Because I just had Reagan at the time. But it just embodied the warrior woman. Because somehow we've been convinced that we're not only too much, but we're not enough.
And therein lies the literal point of this whole podcast.
Yeah.
Are we too much? Are we going to be the arrogant expert? Are we too little? Are we going to be the imposter? Neither.
Yeah.
We got to stop getting trapped on the cycle, because it's just like I said in my story, it's the silent killer. It's not, and it's not even real. It's just a mental mindset. Like, it's a construct that somebody else programmed us to be focusing on. Because once you break away from that egotism, you step into your power and you actually start helping people. And you know what helping does? It changes the world.
Yeah, it does. Once you have found your authenticity, like your kindness and your peace and the things you fight for me, I have found that I demand that of other people. Yeah. So if I'm having a rough relationship, I kind of go and I lay it out where I am, and I demand that their actions will be an answer for me. So I think that in the baby naming world, I'm sure you run into this too. A lot of women are afraid to stand up because they don't want to be disrespectful or they don't want to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I'm a person with thoughts and feelings too, and your reaction should not shut down my choice. You have to handle your own reaction. I'm not hurting you. It's just my choice. You know, It's okay to stand up and be your authentic self. Unless your authentic self is a piece of poop, and then you need to go to therapy to find your true authentic self.
My belief is like, your authentic self can't be a piece of poop because what's the piece of poop is everything piled on top of your authentic self.
Yeah.
Everything that would require you to go to therapy, like that's the piece of poop. But underneath all that and the wonders of therapy, like it's that it helps you excavate.
Yeah. Lady Gaga's song, You Were Born This Way and God Makes No Mistakes, was not talking about your bristly personality. It was talking about your potential.
Right, exactly.
Hidden inside.
Exactly, the hidden potential inside.
Yeah.
And like the weird part of you. You know, the part that you're kind of timid and shy to share with the world and you think it doesn't really matter. And then one day you realize it really matters.
Because you wake up and you're TikTok famous.
Because you wake up one day and somehow just TikTok famous.
Oh, shoot, I'm on the news. I thought this was him.
Oh, shoot, I'm on the show.
Fine. I'll just show up with my beautiful face and talk about my baby names.
I love it when I get to talk about baby names and all of the other stuff. You know, that's like, I love that. I mean, that's why I'm so glad that we were able to, you know, get together and have this conversation, because I knew it was not just going to be about names, you know.
I'm glad. I knew too. That's why I wanted you on. I'm like sitting here like the meme, rubbing my hands together.
I know.
Like this. Where can all the peeps find you?
Sure. So they can find me at What's in a Baby Name on Instagram. I am at What's in a Baby Name Doula. Wait a second. I need to this is the funny thing about my TikTok journey is that I literally put zero effort into it. I had made a couple of videos maybe a year and a half ago now, and they were dumb and not very good because they were my first time trying to figure out TikTok, and I was like, this is an app for 14-year-olds, and here I was at like 32 trying to figure this out, and it was just not working for me. So I made 3 videos, never went on the app again until a year later, and realized I'd gotten a ton of comments on the videos. Not a lot of followers, not a lot of likes, but people were commenting, like asking me about names. And so my first video, the year later, was just me like responding, because on TikTok you can respond directly to comments with a video. And so I just started like answering people's questions on video, literally in my pajamas, lying in bed, like just like zero thought, zero makeup, zero effort. And so I literally didn't even know my own, clearly don't even know my own handle. So, but it's What's in a Baby Named Doula on TikTok. But right, you know, Instagram's my baby. It feels like the community that I have spent the most time cultivating. It's the thing I'm most proud of. It allows me to do longer form, you know, kind of analysis, I would say. I jokingly always call it my blog because my captions are so long. Like I should really just have a blog, but you know, I've got my Instagram, which is my blog. And then they can also find me on Twitter, which is a totally different handle for the same reason. This one is, I am What's in a Baby Name. So if you search for that, it'll come up. But the handle is at Baby Name Doula. So. And
you have a website as well, right?
I also have a website, and that's what'sinababyname.com. Yes. I have to think about all of this.
Well, you're a gem and a treasure, and I so appreciate your heart and your authenticity and how you show up. It touches me when I see your content and I see you show up in your authentic self. It does something even for me. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
God. This was the best. And it just makes me want to do a podcast with you every single day. Your beautiful face.
We need to do a podcast talking about our modern Puritan names.
We have to. And maybe also a podcast about bird names.
Yes, of course.
Okay, good.
So thanks all for tuning in. Be sure to check out Taylor on all of her platforms with her various names, because of course, being a namer, you have a different name for every social media because that's how you roll. And I love you, and I'll talk to you later.